I'm Chris Hana. I run the Esports Observer together with my team, and we partnered up with ESL for this event, for example, and we're also talking about doing more together to bring more business to ESL events. And what we're doing today is we're going to reflect on last year and really look at what were the core trends, what kind of happened, what major milestones have we reached for esports, and then we do a little outlook of what is most likely going to happen this year. And I think just a question for you to kick this off, like, from your perspective, what changed? Like, we have been on that stage last year as well. So what's your take on the year?
Well, I mean, I think the good news is some things change and some things stay, right? I mean, we're going to see the best Counter-Strike teams in the world on this stage. This is the key purpose. And due to it's a major, it's going to be bigger than it has been for a few years. So the core of the product is the same. I think, though, if we go to the trade fair hall, to MCK, there's obviously a lot of differences, right? Last year, the big topic was PUBG. We had a huge PUBG tournament, probably the biggest one up to date out there. And this year has a huge Fortnite tournament. Let's see how this goes. So everything we know, it should actually be much bigger in scale and much bigger in impact. But you can see how fast these new games are changing. What an impact these, let's call it influencer, have on moving from one game to the other and jumping kind of these leaps, while at the same time, if you have a game which has athletes for many years, you have the best influence in the world, and they are extremely loyal to your game, like we're going to see on this stage with Counter-Strike. So yeah, I think that is a big change. It's a battle royale evolving, and maybe next year we see more. Maybe we see Apex Legends and Fortnite.
Yeah, probably.
Who knows?
And I know that's a question you probably get asked a lot. I still have to ask it, also out of personal interest. But if you look back on your history, right, and you really look back into when this all started and when you carried your monitors and computers into dark basements.
I'm really good at carrying monitors, by the way.
I can imagine.
Really good.
And you see this growing, and you just mentioned, right, now it's a major as well, so it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. How proud does that make you, like, year on year? Is that still, like, when you walk into this arena, for example, right? Is this a kicker all the time, or is it just mainstream for you as well now?
I think it has a few things. I think, one, I'm still working here, right? So I'm kind of tunnel blind a bit and probably see more problems than admiration for what we've been doing. So my job is still a lot of times to make it better. So I'm more focused on the problems than on the great things. I think then a very small part of me, maybe 5 to 10%, is obviously sitting here on Sunday watching the grand final and just enjoying, let it go, right? Don't think about the challenges, think about just the moment. I think that's one piece, and the other piece is I have a 7-year-old son. My job is obviously, and I'm going to talk a bit about that, is making sure that for him there's a path into this industry, right? I mean, we spoke on a different conference 2 weeks ago. For me, the most mind-blowing moment this year so far was when I was sitting with wives of big corporate partners of us. Very well educated, super nice, super smart, and they were basically talking more to me than their husbands who were actually doing business with me. Why? Because they wanted for me to figure out how we can do summer camps so they can send their kids to either become influencers or esports athletes. So it's really changing in the way that probably the moms are going to be closer to that industry. My wife is going to be as close as it just because of the kids. And that's going to be fascinating. That's actually something that's making me proud. That's something on a very small scale that we still need to find solutions for.
And I think what you just said is really interesting from an angle. I mean, we're going to touch a couple of topics. So, for example, we're going to talk about investments, and there has been, I think, $4.5 billion being invested just last year into esports, which is, if you look at the previous years, quite a bit. Then we're going to talk about a little bit the IOC and the event in Lausanne, where we both were as well. And what really stuck with me is when we had these conversations about how gaming basically connects even like parents to their kids again. Because I heard these stories so often now where parents go and play Fortnite with their kids as of a way to connect. Like, do you see that occurring more often as well here, for example? Like, do you see a lot more parents than you saw in previous years?
Look, I think we as a society, due to things like television, probably forgot that throughout all of history, playing together has been probably the best experience, aside from very direct social family interaction. The human seems to be built around playing cards, playing whatever, and all of sports, in the end of the day, is based on people playing something. Then structuring it a bit more, making it competitive, and that's how sports were created a few thousand years ago. So what we call gaming is the base of all entertainment. And I believe more than ever that's the best sort of entertainment. It's much better than passively, watching content and getting a story told, because we can create stories. So going back to your question, I know it. I mean, I'm connecting with my son playing FIFA. He is not allowed to play Fortnite yet, and he's not allowed to play Counter-Strike. And Dota is still a bit too complex for him. But me spending time with him on video games is the most obvious thing. And as you said, spending time with your kids playing is going to create a much deeper bond than probably the last few generations, which were more like, post-war, building up, economic pressure. We're gonna have more time for our kids there.
Two very quick questions before I let you do your thing. How hard is it for you as a parent to control yourself to not have your son play Fortnite or Counter-Strike?
It's very easy because it's not my choice. So the wife to 95% is doing that decision making, and I can try to lobby and influence.
And then what do you believe is the single most thing, and there's no clear answer to this, but what is one of the core things you think we'll see this year? Like just as a major trend. And we don't have to elaborate too much, but what do you think people should watch out for?
I hate questions like that. The number one thing to look out for. If
there is something that comes to mind.
If it is, then it's mobile games. It's mobile games everywhere. It's these amazing games opening new target groups and making what we're doing so much more pop culture than it already is.
Cool. Thank you.
Cool.
I'm going to let you do your thing.
Cool.
I'll disappear.
Thank you for having us here. Thank you for being here.
We really hope you enjoy this half day.
Yeah, on this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.